I'm encouraging buyers to put their seller hat on and let's think about what would make a seller feel like you're sexy as hell, right? Yep. Like when they're reading your offer and they see the background and the cover page and the letters of recommendations and the case study, when they're seeing that, like what makes you stand out? Mm-hmm. Those are some of the things that can really make you stand out, right?
Yep.
But probably the number one thing.
Welcome back to the Passive Road to Retirement podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Jarrett. Today we are joined by Beau Beery. Beau helps multifamily investors from beginners to the most elite in the world buy and sell more assets. He earned a bachelor's degree in marketing and a master of science degree in real estate from the University of Florida, as well as the prestigious Certified Commercial Investment Member designation, CCIM. He has been in commercial real estate business in Florida since 1999. In 2011, he teamed up with Todd Rainsberger, a successful commercial realtor, to acquire an interest in Coldwell Banker Commercial. There, he was consistently ranked as the number one multifamily producer in Florida for Coldwell Banker Commercial brand and among the top 5 in the nation every year before starting his own private multifamily brokerage firm in 2021. Beau, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, man, the same here. I'm excited about it. Let's do it.
Same. So for the audience, maybe if someone hasn't heard you, give us a little more background information and kind of how you got into the commercial sales.
Yeah, sure. So after my degree in marketing from UF, I actually went and worked for Trammell Crow Residential, which at the time I didn't know was one of the largest apartment developers in the country. And I was just an on-site leasing and management guy, right? On a 444 unit community, fell in love with it. I mean, I had a really cool property manager. She would show me the books, the P&Ls, the balance sheets. And I watched essentially 800 tenants pay for this $25, $30 million asset, which is now close to a $70 million asset. And just thought, my God, like, I don't even see the owners. Like, I mean, they don't even show up. It's just like, this thing's being paid for.
Yeah.
I was like, how do I get into this business? Right.
Light bulb.
Yeah. And Trammell Crow back then paid for education, to a degree. So I went and got my real estate license. And when I was getting my real estate license, everyone was talking about the University of Florida master's program. So I did that master's degree in real estate. Went and worked for AMJ, which is a commercial developer and investor. So we acquired office, retail, industrial, multifamily. I brokered and managed the portfolio, and then went into full-time brokerage by acquiring the Coldwell Banker Commercial. And I've specialized just in multifamily since then. That was around 2009, 2010, somewhere in there.
Okay.
And the rest is history. I do anything over 10 units. Conventional or student housing. If you looked at my bell curve, most of my deals are between 20 and 200 units. Mm-hmm. I do several that are over 200 units. I usually don't go below 20 units all that much. But that's my wheelhouse. I cover the northern half of Florida. And, so basically like Orlando, Lakeland, Winter Haven is kind of my southern border, and then all the way up to Tallahassee, Jacksonville, and anything in between.
Okay. All right. Great. Yeah. What a difference in pricing, huh? From 25 to 70.
Oh man, it's crazy.
Over years is crazy, right?
Yeah, it really is. And, of course, in the $25 million sale, or I think it was 25 or 30, was historic at that time.
Right. Yep. Now you deal with, I'm sure you get a lot of new buyers come into the market. I mean, Florida has massive migration,
Sure.
What's the main thing you look for when you speak with a new buyer? Is there anything they can do to, kind of get top of mind, or, what's your thoughts on that?
So I guess there's two types of new to me, right? There's someone who is maybe very experienced, owns lots of units in other markets or other states, and then comes into Florida. What I ask for typically then is, I'd love to see kind of a bio on themselves, what their backgrounds are, make a list of the assets that you own and addresses, or point me to a website.
Sure.
Who are your partners? What are their backgrounds? Who have you done business with on the broker side? Who have you done business with on the debt side? It's nice to kind of know if we have any people that we know in between us, right? And to kind of background check you. And we do all this for two reasons. Number one, we want to make sure we're not wasting our time. Number two, more importantly, that's what the seller wants. Okay. I want I want to be able to talk you up as a buyer, even if you own 5,000 units in California. That gives you an edge in Florida, but it's not as important as someone who owns 5,000 units in Florida.
Right.
And so I want to be able to talk you up even more if I can to a seller if you're in a multiple offer situation. Mm-hmm. The other new buyer would be, let's just say, the newbie, right? The new buyer. And, one of the worst things I think you can do, maybe some brokers will disagree, is calling up and saying, I'm a new buyer, right? I mean, you don't want to do that because now you're a newbie in my head. You're just, it's really hard for you to compete with even a mediocre investor if you don't own any units, don't have any relationships with other brokers, with debt sources, equity sources, property managers, construction companies, phase one, all this stuff. All I'm thinking about as a broker is if this person turns in an offer, they're going to spend the first 2-3 weeks even getting to know the market. Yeah. And they're going to spend another 2 or 3 weeks trying to find people who can do the things they need to do with the asset and find the things that the inspection people. And so, that would make me look bad. That would, the seller's not going to want to do any additional deals with that person. So my suggestion for that type of new person is before you even make any calls and get into it, team up with a mentor. You've got it. That's the only way you even have a shot. Right, is to team up with someone who already owns units, already has connections, with debt and equity and remodeling resources and property management and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. That way, when you call up, you're saying, hey, my name is Andrew. My partner, Joe, and we own 320 units together. Right. We've done business with so-and-so. We run around with so-and-so construction company. These are the past 2 asset managers that we've used in the different markets we cover. That sounds a whole lot. It's a whole different conversation, right? Exactly. Like now I'm paying attention.
Right. Yeah. Plus with a newbie, you're going to be spending a lot more of your time kind of hand-holding and guiding them through, giving them the contacts, I'd imagine. Just a lot more work for you as well.
Yeah. I mean, I personally am perfectly fine working with newbies. I don't mind hand-holding from time to time because I'm 46 years old. I feel like I'm going to be doing this probably for another 15, 20 years, maybe not at the same level, the same number of hours. But to me, I'm looking for long-term relationships. I feel like if I can grow new folks, they'll stay with me forever, right? Just out of plain gratitude and actually giving them good advice and producing for them, right?
Sure.
But there are a lot of brokers out there that they are super busy and they don't. That's just not their thing. Like growing people is not their thing. And that's perfectly fine.
Right.
What I'm saying though, is just from a an efficiency with your time standpoint, don't kill yourself in the very beginning, announcing you're new all over the place because you could lose a lot of people that way.
True. Yeah, that's a great point. Now the market in Florida, especially, is white hot right now. We're seeing multiple offers, as you know, across the board. What's one thing somebody could do maybe to increase their odds of getting a deal right now, whether newbie or or experienced buyer?
Yeah, there's a number of things. I wrote a whole book on it almost, basically. So in single family sales, okay, I'm going to give you an analogy. In single family sales right now, it's the same. Actually, it's worse, right? Because there's even fewer homes that you can afford. In my little Gainesville town where I'm based out of, there is less than 1 month's supply of homes for sale. It's absolutely bonkers. Less than a month, meaning if no other houses came on the market, every house that's on the market right now would sell in under a month.
What's the typical supply there?
I don't know I don't study the numbers. I look at sort of these summary sheets that some of the residential brokers send out. And I noticed the whole under 1 month. To answer your question, equilibrium is 6 months. If that was your question. Yeah. So if there's 6 months of inventory, neither the seller nor the buyer has the upper hand.
Right.
And we're at under 1 month, right? So it's a huge seller's market.
Wow.
The average single family home is going to contract, okay, in 9 days.
Wow. That's crazy.
It's nuts. Which means negotiations are happening in an hour, right? In hours, not even days. You still have to tour the place, blah, 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 right?
Right.
But in single family sales, there are obviously multiple offers, and all good single family salespeople are encouraging buyers to put together full bio packages, cover letters, right? So I'm suggesting a cover letter about, giving a little bit about yourself, what your background is, why you're the best buyer for it, maybe even what you plan to do for it. So I just sold I sold a historic apartment building last year, and one of the winning buyers talked about how they were going to create a statue of the person who developed it, who still owns it and has passed away. Now the daughter runs it. He's going to put a statue of that person in the entry foyer when you come in. That has an impact.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. Right. And then the second page would be, basically a list of assets and addresses and number of units and where they are. Mm-hmm. Letters of recommendations from brokers you've done business with, because it's a hugely, it's an incredibly small world, right?
Right.
In the northern half of Florida, there's about 15 of us that control the market. We do 80% of the business. Mm-hmm. There might be another 30 or 40 brokers, but the 15, 20 of us are doing all the business, and we all know each other, and all the investors know us. Mm-hmm. So when you see letters of recommendation from Beau or Joe or Sam or whatever, they know they can call that person up. Letters of recommendations from debt sources, maybe from attorneys you've worked with, insurance people, whoever it is.
Sure.
That has weight, right? Mm-hmm. And then, I've actually seen this a couple of times. This is going pretty far, but it was interesting, was case studies. I had a couple buyers that turned in like a case study where they put something under contract, found something during due diligence, right? And then said how they dealt with it, which was basically just they closed on it. It didn't matter, right? Mm-hmm. And this is why it didn't matter and closed on it, right?
Okay.
I'm encouraging buyers to put their seller hat on, and let's think about what would make a seller feel like you're sexy as hell, right? Yep. Like when they're reading your offer and they see the background and the cover page and the letters of recommendations and the case study, when they're seeing that, like what makes you stand out? Mm-hmm. Like those are some of the things that can really make you stand out, right?
Yep.
But probably the number one thing is brokers or debt sources being able to vouch for you. I've been able to pick a number of buyers in just the trailing 12 months for my sellers based on the ability of having been able to call a broker that I knew that had done business with them to ask them how that transactions went, how they reacted when something came up. Sure. Did they close ahead of time or on time or late? Did they use the extensions in their contracts?
Okay.
It's a big deal.
That's interesting too, with the due diligence coming back and not retrading the seller, showing that maybe you took it as is and not,
right.
Making it a more smooth transaction. That's actually
because every seller thinks about that. I mean, again, like Andrew, you're sitting there in that chair, like put on your seller hat. Mm-hmm. If one of the things you're always thinking about as you choose a buyer among 12 or 15 offers is, is this joker going to close? That's all we want to know. Exactly. Right? Like we're already looking at the list of offers and we see all the prices and the terms. We know these 5 out of these 12 are acceptable. Mm-hmm. Who's going to show up to closing?
Right.
And if you can remove that whole, does this guy get scared when something comes up, or does this guy retrade just because, it's like in his blood, that's someone you don't want to go to bed with.
Yep. Totally agree. Speaking of that, you always hear about the off market, deals.
Yeah.
Are you seeing, many of those transactions happen? And is there even such a thing as a true off market? Besides direct to seller, it seems like that's kind of the buzzword now.
So I'll tackle this in several different ways. I've done a few videos on this in the past. I think in many buyers' minds, the off market to them means that they have reached a seller or a broker has brought a deal to them so early in the process that nobody else has seen it. Mm-hmm. They're the only human beings on earth looking at it. And they're going to get this 5 or 10% off market price, right? Sure. That never happens. when I say never, statistically speaking, it's extremely rare. And you certainly wouldn't want to create a business plan on doing that kind of transaction, or you
never
would be
buy
doing
anything. Yeah.
Right. You may make more profit on that one, but you're only going to do one deal every 3 or 4 years.
Right.
And if that's your thing, totally cool, right? Mm-hmm. But the name of the game of this business is doing as many deals as possible, growing as big as possible, so you can push people around.
Right.
The more units you own, the more I can sell you to my seller.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
And so, but what we as a broker envision more of an off-market deal is the seller calls me up and says, "Hey, Beau, we want you to do a BOV with us. If we like your number, we're good to go." So I do a BOV. He likes the number. He or she lists with me. And he says, "Beau, I don't want my staff to know about this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want my tenants to find out about it. So I don't want it on a bunch of websites. Don't email blast it to tens of thousands of random people. Right. I want you to go to your targeted database and sell it." Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, with today's technology, Andrew, good brokers have built a database that is filled with hundreds of phenomenal buyers with endless equity, right? Yeah. So it really doesn't change anything. Mm-hmm. Okay, you're still going to be competing, and even when you think you're the only person, like I called up Andrew. Hey, Andrew, it's Beau the broker. I got this deal. It's an off-market deal. Blah 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 blah. We take a run at it. Right. I'm still doing that with lots of people. I'm just, some brokers are just going to make you feel special. I'm just telling you straight up.
Right.
I have to talk to lots of other people. It's my fiduciary responsibility.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Now, you may be competing against much less in an off-market situation because it's not being blasted out all over the place and every Yahoo's turning it in. Mm-hmm. But you're probably competing against some of the best because I've been limited by the seller on who to take it to. So I'm taking it to just killers. I'm taking it to murderers in this business, right? So listen, and there are every now and then what I would also envision as a really good off market, and I've done several of these. These exist, but again, you wouldn't want to base your business plan on it.
Right.
Is Andrew's driving around, Tallahassee, Florida. He's on vacation with his wife, sees an asset that he loves. Maybe the grass is a little bit taller. Maybe he thinks he could improve the rents. Maybe he saw that the company managing it isn't that great of a management company because he knows about them in a different market. Mm-hmm. So Andrew calls up Beau and says, "Hey, Beau, my wife and I are driving through this Tallahassee market. We see XYZ apartments over on Main Street. Who owns that? I'd love to take a run at that. That's the exact kind of product that we buy. It's the same number of stories, the same type. I own 2 of those in a different market. Like, I think we could do that, right?" Mm-hmm. And so then I'm able to give you a scoop on it because I know every human being that owns every asset.
Right.
And I say, well, as a matter of fact, Andrew, I haven't talked to Joe, the seller, in about 6 or 7 months was the last time I called him and said, if he's open to selling, I think we should give him a call. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I give Joe, the seller, a call and I say, "Hey, Joe, this guy, Andrew, I've done 3 deals with him in the past. He's legit. He's real deal. I know you get these calls all the time from a broker. But he's got 1031 money. He's got 8 days left in his identification period. He was on vacation with his wife in Tallahassee. Would you just entertain a quick offer list? I'm not asking for a listing. I'm not going to take it to a bunch of other people. Like, let's just see what this guy does."
Right.
And Joe says, "Yeah, shit. Okay, no problem. All right. Mm-hmm. Let's take a run at it." That would be a true off-market, wonderful example.
Right.
Now, Joe the seller ain't stupid, Andrew.
Yeah.
Joe the seller is not going to give you a 5% discount because it's not market. He's actually going to make you pay a premium for not going to market.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep. Agreed.
Now, are there instances in which Joe the seller only owns 2 assets, hasn't sold a transaction in 7 years, and is kind of oblivious to what's going on in the world and sells it for 5% off? Sure. It's happened, right? But again, don't base your business plan on it.
Yeah, not very often.
Don't spend 80% of your day making those kinds of calls. The calls you want to make is to Beau Beery and every broker in the market, telling them about what your criteria is, telling them why you're a great buyer, so that when they get deals, they bring them to you ASAP as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. Those are the guys who grow the biggest.
Yep. And speaking of your data, by the way, your website, beaubeery.com, on the resources tab. Yeah. Everybody should be going there. You have incredible data, by the way. I love it.
Thank you.
So I guess how did you start pulling that data? When did you start it and what can people expect to gain from that?
Yeah. So I would say it's probably been 12 or 14 years, maybe 10 or 12 years ago. I, like many brokers, used to rely on the CoStars, the Reeses, all of these data websites for my information. And I just kept getting embarrassed when I would send something out and an investor would call me and say, that's wrong, or that's not correct, or that sale didn't happen, or that price is wrong. And I was just like, you know what? I mean, I'm so in love with data myself. It would eat me alive. It would eat my ego alive.
Right.
Like that I pride myself on this kind of information and it's wrong. So I'm just like, I'm done with this shit. I'm going to build my own unbelievable database. I don't care what it costs. I'm doing this. So I spent the better part of a year. I could probably do it in 4 months now that I know how to do it. But I spent the better part of a year. And what I did was I decided all of these websites and resources, all of them get their information initially from tax assessor websites. Tax assessors are the only human beings, the only organization on planet Earth that literally have every asset under the sun because they want to tax them.
Right.
It's the only place you can find this information.
Yeah.
And then the co-stars of the world build on top of that. The problem is that they're using, $15, $20 an hour 20-year-olds to enter in the data, and they don't know real estate.
Right.
They don't always know the difference between market rate and student housing. They don't get the units correctly. They don't necessarily, so they're data mining thousands of assets. Whereas me, I'm just covering the northern half of Florida. There are only 1,978 assets. And so I can get pretty damn masterful at under 2,000 assets that are owned by only 998 people in the world. So I exported every single asset over 10 units that was conventional and student housing, and I even did affordable housing, and I exported from the websites. Almost all municipalities have this ability. If they don't have that ability, oftentimes you can call them and either have them export it and email it to you, or you can go visit them. There are some states I've heard since doing podcasts, there are some states, very minimal, that don't have any ability whatsoever. Like it's like basically like a no-show state. They can't give you any information, right? Okay. Which sucks. Then you have to rely on these other organizations. So I exported all these assets. And usually what you can get from a property appraiser is parcel number, ownership entity, which is always an LLC. Some of them give you number of units, most don't. Age, when it's sold, and what it last sold for. That's it.
Yeah.
So then I use other resources like the co-stars of the world, driving by, personal knowledge in the market, to then also put in number of units, number of bedrooms, type of construction, kind of roof, how much value add is there. I rank them A, B plus, B minus, C plus, C minus. So I have basically like 20 something columns in an Excel spreadsheet. Once I had everything perfect, even researching who the principal is, who the acquisition person is, who the disposition person is for that company, phone numbers, email addresses, I went way beyond who the wives are, the kids are, where they went to school, who we know together, background picture on Facebook, what the picture downloads, articles they've written, articles about them, every asset they own in the state of ad nauseum. I had this. I have so much information about people that if they knew what I had about them, they would be freaked out.
Right. Yeah.
But it's all public knowledge. Yeah. Right? It's amazing what's out there in the world.
True.
And so then I imported all that information into a CRM. I use RealNex, RealNex. Doesn't matter what CRM you use, but I import it in. And when I import it in a fashion at which every one of those metrics is searchable. Right. So if I'm working with a 1031 guy who has 8 days left and he's frantic, right, and he's sold his asset with me, I'll spend the time to work with a buyer like that. And so I can take 1,967 assets and I can search each field. So if Andrew wants something that's over 150 units, conventional, built after 1990, that's B minus class or better, that's in Tallahassee or Gainesville only, that hasn't sold in the last 2 years, that hasn't refinanced in the last year, that isn't built of wood construction, that's 10 miles or more away from the coast.
That's incredible.
I can take 1967 down to the only 33 assets they could ever buy in the entire northern half of Florida.
Wow.
And I can make 33 phone calls in about 3 days. Right?
Yeah, fine.
I can email them in an hour and then follow with phone calls and then hopefully do a deal. Right? But it's a hell of a lot better than just email blasting and calling random assets all over the place,
right,
with zero opportunity to buy those. The ones I can get to because of my database and the way I've structured it, these are human beings that are the most apt to sell, right? They've owned it for more than 2 or 3 years, because if they own it for less than that, it's going to be hard to buy it. They haven't just refinanced it very, very recently. That way you don't have, prepayment penalties.
Sure.
They're at a certain process in their remodel. All these indicators I track, right? I have a whole bunch of algorithms. That's how I get listings as well. When I walk into my CRM every day and I pull it up, my CRM is telling me today, Andrew, who I need to call based on entries I did last month, last year, 10 years ago.
Wow.
Okay. Andrew, the seller, could have told me 10 years ago, Beau, you don't even need to call me until 2026. This is in the AB fund. That AB fund doesn't mature until August of 2026.
Yep.
Ain't selling, can't sell it. It's in our prospectus, can't do it. Right. And so I'll put in to start calling him 2 years before 2026 to start, buttering him up and getting him in there. And of course, he's on my drip marketing program for the other 8 years. I'm still touching base with him. I'm adding as much value as I can.
Sure.
But every day I come in my office, it's telling me things that I've tried to predict are going to sell today. And that's the power of databases. The guys who figure out the technology part of this business are the guys that win. There are people way smarter than me and other brokers and even other investors in real estate. I'm not a genius in real estate, but I got the technology down and I've learned real estate.
Yeah, the data I agree. It's incredible that you have, and definitely data-driven investing is the way to go. You've seen that over and over again. So somebody looking in Florida, a syndicator or somebody just looking to buy in their own portfolio, if they want to buy 2-3 deals a year, based on your data that you collect, how many markets should they be looking in to be able to achieve those?
Great question. So the reason I cover the northern half of Florida as a broker, the way I came up with that is the way that investors should look at markets as well, which is I, as a broker, want to earn a certain GCI or gross commission income, right? And in order to determine the number of markets, I've got to determine the number of markets to cover based on the number of sales that occur and the market share I believe I can capture, right? So when I started many, many years ago, obviously the first thing I looked at was Gainesville. Okay, well, I looked up Gainesville and I did a 5-year analysis and determined that on average, only 12 deals a year sell over 10 units in the entire market, right?
Yep.
And so I was like, okay, well, I'm in Gainesville. Everyone knows me in Gainesville. I could probably capture more of those sales than anybody else, but that still ain't nowhere near enough. Right. Even if I captured 3 or 4 of those, that ain't enough to make the kind of living I want to make. So then I said, okay, well, let me look at Ocala. Okay, well, Ocala only has 5 deals a year that close. Okay. Right. And then I look at Volusia County. Well, Volusia County has 14, 15, depending on the year, right?
Yep.
Jacksonville has 30 or 40 deals a year. And it gets a little bit better sometimes. And then they've been high as almost 50, right? And so we started surveying. And so out of the 1967 assets that exist, let's just call it 2,000 assets for round numbers. In any one market, I had determined only 6 to 8% of inventory closes per year. So last year in 2021, which was one of the most robust years ever, there were only 160 deals done. So that was 8%.
Wow.
Most of the time it's 5-6%, right? So 120 to 100. I think my 5-year average, the 5-year average here is 137 deals occur per year in the northern half of Florida.
Then if you break it down by actual asset class, it's probably even a smaller number.
Oh, even less.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's even once I start getting, okay, well, how much in conventional? And how much if you cover only 100 units? And so it gets even smaller and smaller and smaller, right? So that's why I cover anything over 10 units because, will I sell a 20 unit deal, okay, that sells for $2 million and I get paid 4 or 5 points? Yeah, that's a 6-figure check. I'll do that all day long, right? Yeah. A lot of the big brokers, though, they can't do $2 million deals, right? It's because, they have to concentrate on the larger assets for the same reason investors who only buy 100 plus units can't buy a 20 unit deal. It still takes the same amount of time, right? Same amount of resources and intellectual capital to do those deals. They've got to concentrate on some of the bigger stuff.
That makes sense. Yeah. Plus, third-party management for bigger deals.
Yeah.
Self-manage that thing, 10 units.
But to answer your question, to summarize that is, you need to cover enough number of markets, and you need to study these markets and export all the closings. You have to know that stuff. If you don't have someone like me in the market that covers all these, then you have to find a broker who does, or look at the information yourself. But you're looking for enough number of transactions that, based on the type of transaction you buy and the market share you think you can capture. And by the way, you're pretty much a murderer, okay, if you can get 3 to 5% market share.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, if there's 200 transactions that happen in the northern half of Florida, okay, and you're doing 6 of those transactions just in the northern half of Florida, that's pretty damn good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The reality is a lot of the bigger investors, they're covering multiple states.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But a 3 to 5% penetration is pretty damn good. Even for a broker, 3 to 5% penetration is pretty damn good.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Well, I would say 5% for a broker.
Okay. Now, so I was looking at your data and just some other data I've looked at. So they say we have 1,000 people a day moving to Florida right now. So if you can get out your crystal ball and you're looking maybe 5-10 years from now, we have a housing shortage. Interest rates are increasing, but I don't think they're going to stay high or go high. Rents are increasing. What do you see for Florida? In your opinion, maybe 5-10 years from now for multifamily investors?
Yeah, it's going to be super strong. I mean, and I'm not saying this because I'm a multifamily broker. You have to understand, when I made the choice 12 years ago or 10, whatever it was, 10, 12 years ago, to go all in multifamily instead of being a generalist in office and retail and industrial, I'm not the type of guy that makes that decision lightly, right? I'm a data nerd. I studied this. My coach and I, my commercial real estate coach and I studied at that time when I was in my early 30s, what is going to take us to 60, 65 years old. We have to concentrate. We know that no broker who makes a ton of money is a generalist. They all concentrate what asset class we're going to concentrate on. Right. And we studied everything. We studied the number of deliveries that has to happen between now and the next 20 years to even catch up with demand on the rental side. We studied the trajectory of housing prices and how every year it's going to get worse and worse and worse. You can't afford a home anymore, right? We studied how seniors are all renting like crazy. We studied how millennials will absolutely just be renting. They want to be able to bounce around and be fluid and take jobs and move around and so forth, right? Sure. We studied how the regulatory environment of getting developments improved has increased construction costs and land development costs to an insane level, right? Which basically means that we will never be able to deliver as a whole the number of units we need to. And then when we do, the rents are going to continue to be high, right? Which means that existing assets rents will continue to go up at a nice little clip. Because as long as you're under new construction rents, you're going to do fine, right? Yep. So we looked at all this, and I went all in. I bet my whole life, my family, everything I own on multifamily, taking me from, at the time, was an early 30-year-old into my 60s. And I did that for a reason. And I knew in Florida I was going to have that. So to answer your question, we're going to continue to have migration to Florida. And my guess is that initially, everyone likes to come into the southern half of Florida. Right. That's the Miami, the Fort Lauderdales, because it's sexy. It's got good beaches. There's high incomes. Everyone drives nice cars. There's beautiful houses. But what's happening already in Miami and moving up is that it's extremely busy. The people who moved from California, New York, New Jersey, Texas to get out of the hustle and bustle, they're moving and they're like, what in the hell?
Yeah, exactly.
This is horrible, right?
Right.
So people are moving northern up Florida, right? So that's why Orlando and Tampa are exploding. Orlando and Tampa are still very busy. It takes sometimes longer to drive around, right? But there's a lot of outskirt towns to Orlando and Tampa that still takes under 45 minutes to get into Orlando. And you can live in municipalities around Tampa and Orlando that are wonderful. They're like suburbia, right? Oh, yeah. And the more northern you get, the less hustle and bustle it is. Right. So I just believe that deliveries, period, will not catch up to demand. It may in pockets like, FSU student housing exploded over the last few years. Gainesville student housing walking distance over the next several years has a lot of bedrooms come in. So there will be some overbuilds here and there in certain pockets, but as a whole, Florida is going to be gangbusters, brother.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. Yep, absolutely. And no tax, no income tax, the weather.
For now.
Yeah, true, right?
No rent restrictions for now.
Yeah. I mean, it's talked about, hopefully not, we'll see.
Right. I agree.
So over your career, you've done a lot of deals, obviously. What's something that you've seen, maybe someone made a mistake on, and what an investor could learn from that mistake?
Yeah. I mean, the one that irritates me the most, that makes no financial sense, that I see all too often, and I understand why it happens, but I'm gonna tell you what it is, because I think if you can master just this one thing, you'll do more deals and you'll start to see the bigger picture in the bigger light, which is that, when folks get involved in a multifamily deal, let's say you're under contract on something, or you're not even under contract, you're underwriting it and trying to evaluate this thing, right? Is that, allowing small things that come, every multifamily transaction is going to have something that comes up. Okay. There's too many bedrooms and bathrooms and kitchens and land and acreage. There's never a smooth deal. I mean, I do maybe one deal a year where I'm just kind of like, holy shit, that was as clean as it gets, right? Yeah. Everyone loves each other. It was a perfect transaction. It just doesn't happen, right? And so if something's always going to happen, something's always going to come up during due diligence, you have to make decisions. Think about IRR and cash on cash. Don't be what I call a principal-based investor. Meaning, let's say during due diligence, something comes up. There's a type of piping that you weren't told about. There's asbestos, or whatever it is. Everything has a financial number to it. Okay. And what most buyers do is they say, hey, Beau, the seller didn't tell me about that, or the seller didn't know about that, or whatever. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. This came up, and Beau, I'm the buyer. The seller needs to fix this. He needs to come off the price $500,000, right? $300,000, whatever it is. Let's say you're looking at a $30 million deal and a $500,000 came up. The automatic thought is to retrade, right? What that does is it kills your reputation. That seller owns other assets. They're never going to entertain selling to you. That broker's probably not going to bring you other deals. And the reality is when you plug in $500,000 in extra cost up front into your pro forma on a 5, 7, or 10-year hold, ain't going to move your IRR that much. I know it's a big ass number, but I've run the numbers. Take out your pro forma right now and play with a $30 million deal and play with $500,000 in year 0 and see what it does to your IRR. Right? Yep. So you're going to get principle based. But it's the principle of the matter, right? I need $500,000 off. But now you've cut off deals ever seen from that broker, from that seller. That seller's going to talk to other friends who are sellers. That broker's going to talk to other investors and other brokers who are possible sellers in the future, right? And so that's one component. The other component is that seller sees 9 other people behind you who will accept that thing that came up. Because I, as a broker, as soon as you bring that to me, I'm already talking to the next 4 guys in line and saying, hey, Sam, Andrew just brought up, he just found this issue. Seller didn't know about it. It is an issue. If Andrew pushes this and I come to you, are you going to stand by your price without and absorb that $500,000? And I guarantee the answer is hell yeah. Tell Andrew to piss off. Let me step in that. Let me step in that deal right now. Right? Okay. So that's, and then let's just say that none of that even exists. The fact that you as a buyer are willing to risk this deal, okay, and not earn $8 million 7 years from now when you go to sell it, makes no sense to me. Okay. Let's just say you only make $4 million on a $30 million deal 7 years from now, which is impossible. Let's just say you just make $4 million. Are you sad about $500,000 now?
Not at all.
Right. And so it's just, people get so entrenched emotionally in something that comes up instead of thinking of this logically and long-term. Time cures all stuff, right?
True.
And even on the front end, as you're evaluating this and turning in a letter of intent, right? Like, always offer the most you can possibly pay and it still makes sense to you. What most people do is they underwrite it, They know what number they can pay. They can pay $31 million on this $28 million, or let's just say they can pay $31 million on this $30 million ask price.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going to turn in 29 because they're going to try to just win it.
Yeah.
And that ain't the game you want to play in any market, especially in this market.
Right.
Because there ain't no second, there's no like second chance.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So many times a deal closes and the second, third, and fourth place guy calls me up and they're like, dude, I'd have come up $500,000 more.
Right.
Right.
Yep. Exactly. See it all the time.
All the time.
500,000.
And I get it. I get it. We a lot of us are guilty in it in smaller stuff. We walk into a garage sale and we see a widget that's only for $3, but we think we can get it for $2, right?
Right. It's natural.
So we offer it $2, right? And sometimes they take it and you know, hey, if the guy behind me says, I'll pay $3, we don't care. We just lost $1.
Yeah. But I'm 30 million.
It's ingrained in our brains over time.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. I agree. And $500,000 is going to cost you, like you said, relationships, you know, potential deals, which is worth way more.
The potential deals is the big deal. And the problem is you can't quantify it. Right. And so people don't put a whole lot of weight on it, but it's true. It's not because brokers are vindictive or sellers are vindictive. This is just the way the human brain works.
Yep.
When I saw you retrade $50,000, okay, on a $3 million deal, it's stained in my brain. I can't not think about that on the next offer you turn in on.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about that. And when there's 5 offers or 10 offers on that next offering, I feel obligated to tell the seller, whoa. Right. Let me tell you what happened between Andrew and I 3 transactions ago.
Exactly.
I just want you to know this seller because I don't want to get down this road and then you blame me for having to select the wrong guy.
Especially if it comes up again, you know?
Absolutely.
Exactly. Yep. So last question, then we're going to get into our 5 to thrive.
Yeah.
If you could step in my shoes for the interview, what's one question that you would ask yourself that I didn't ask you?
That's a great one. I'm sorry, I don't remember. I didn't think about this beforehand. Probably, Beau, what is something that you wish you knew coming up in the business early on? And I would say it is not working with bad reputation people. A lot of us partner up or get with or do transactions with folks that, and it can even be your attorney. It could be your property manager. It could, whoever it is that's on your team. If you sniff, they may be good at something, but they have this reputation that you know about in the market. You don't want to associate with those guys.
Right.
Because the outside world sees that as well. Right. And people want any excuse to not have to be able to eliminate you from something and choose the right person. So I would early on choose your partners, right? Your attorneys, your phase 1 people. All these people are part of your brand, whether they're on your company or not.
Yeah. Great advice. I agree. So what's the best way for people to contact you? I know you've got your YouTube. They should definitely get your book. What's the best way to get it?
3 ways. This book you got to get, Multifamily Investors Who Dominate. That's what it looks like right here. It's on Amazon in hardcover. It's on Audible. It's on Kindle. The reason you want to buy that is this is sort of the inside look. These are the inside conversations between brokers and sellers. This is how we choose buyers. These are how some of the best buyers in the world grow way faster than most buyers and what they do. And I've tracked these guys for 20 years. The second way to reach me is my YouTube channel, Beau Knows Multifamily. I've got stuff on there for beginners, for advanced level guys. I've got analytical stuff on there. Sometimes I put new listings on there out of the blue before I tell anybody about them. And then lastly, my website is beaubeery.com, BeauBeery.com. I got all kinds of amazing stats on there. And even if you're not in the Florida market, you don't invest in the Florida market, the reason you want to visit my resources section at the top of the website is I want you to study the kind of information I have within the markets that I cover. And if you as the investor can master that stuff that I have on those web pages for your markets, you will be unstoppable. And brokers and sellers will notice the kind of the kind of data you have in your brain, and they want to select people like that to work with. They want to select people like that to bring deals to, because they know you know the market like the back of your hand. They know that because you know the market so well, you can react in seconds.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I got to say that resources tab is incredible. I was shocked by the amount of data in there. I've sent it to a lot of people actually. So,
awesome.
So now we got our 5 to Thrive, which is basically it's a word association game. So I'm just going to rapid fire 5 words. And just give me the first word or phrase that comes to your mind. The only thing is you can't repeat your answer twice.
Okay, got it.
All right. So the first one is Florida multifamily.
Hot. Well into the future.
Oh, yeah. Data-driven investing.
The most powerful skill that I think you need to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Truly.
Marketing.
Branding. Marketing is reputation. It's branding. It's what gets opportunities brought to you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Passive income.
Woo, beautiful. Love it. It's the freedom. It's what's going to take you into into your retirement years and give you the life you want, man.
Yep, absolutely. And last one, Beau Beery.
Data-driven, goofy, fun, likable, productive, all those things.
I like it, man. I like it. Well, it's been a great interview. Thanks so much for taking your time and coming on, and I appreciate it. Great to see you.
No, thanks for the opportunity, man.